Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Cook with OC program today. Before we begin tonight's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices, located in Toronto, are on, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie, Napoli, Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your host this evening. Thank you to the Winnipeg Foundation for their partnership in this cooking demo webinar. So this cooking demo and this cook-along will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It is not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice, but if you have questions about nutrition, consult a physician or registered dietitian. So tonight things are a little different. We're doing a cook-along. So we have a lovely group of folks in Winnipeg who are online, and they're going to be cooking along with us. But now we also have a lot of other people who are joining us from across the country who are going to be watching us all prepare. So we want to hear from everyone. If you have a question or comment, just click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and you can enter it there, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. Nutrition is a key component for strong and healthy bones, and there are 5 nutrients recommended for bone health. Calcium, one of the key minerals that supports new bone formation and helps maintain strong bones. Vitamin D ensures our bodies can absorb enough calcium. Protein is necessary to build and repair bone tissue and helps keeps muscles strong. Magnesium helps our body use vitamin D, which is important for calcium absorption. And vitamin K activates the protein that helps build bone and bind minerals, such as calcium, to the bone structure. Now, we have a lot of new information coming out in the coming year, in the coming weeks. So check osteoporosis.ca and subscribe to the National e-newsletter so that you can get new information, tools, and resources directly to your inbox. So tonight, we have a lot of different ingredients we're using. And we want to talk a little bit before we get started about different foods and the nutrients that they have. So Greek yogurt, of course, a great source for calcium. Protein also contains magnesium. And the featured ingredient in tonight's recipe is chickpeas. And we love chickpeas, and we have a lot of different chickpea recipes on our website because chickpeas also contain calcium and protein, vitamin D, and magnesium and vitamin K. Other sources of foods with calcium and protein, specifically bok choy, also has magnesium and vitamin K, and salmon has protein primarily, but also has a good amount of vitamin D and submagnesium and calcium as well. So it's all about the foods that you choose, all about the different combinations of foods that you put together. And so this all contributes to your daily intake. Our featured recipe tonight is falafel pitas with tahini, and each serving has 200 milligrams of calcium and 16 grams of protein. You can get this and other recipes on the Osteoporosis Canada website at osteoporosis.ca/recipes. I will also share the link in the chat. It's now my pleasure to welcome Emily Richards, who's a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she's the author and co-author of now 11 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating, and she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. Welcome to Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Tracie. Hey, everybody. It is here a rainy Tuesday night. So a perfect night to be cooking with OC. Don't you think, Tracie?
Yes, I do. It's always a perfect time to cook with OC. So we're excited. We've got such a good group on, and we've got all our cook-along participants, some who've joined us previously and some that are brand new. And so, Emily, before we get started, just really quickly, as we normally do, we have new aprons. Emily is modeling one, and I will, of course, for those people who aren't cooking with us tonight and they're watching the demo, I will draw a name, and if you're on at the end of the webinar, we will send you a Cook with OC apron. So looking forward to that. All right, Emily, let's take it away.
Let's take it away. I have, first and foremost, the recipe right in front of me, because I'm messy in the kitchen, and I usually have a paper copy with me to make sure that I don't forget anything. And since we have cook along friends with us tonight, they don't want to miss out on anything either, because we want to eat what we're making tonight. That's really important. And I love this recipe because it has versatility. It can be served as an appetizer, it can be served as a main, it can be served as a side dish. It has so many great options. And on top of it all, it's vegan. So if you have any family members that are vegan or vegetarian, this is a great option for you to kind of showcase your culinary skills. And we are going to talk about all those wonderful things that Tracie mentioned at the beginning as well. What I want to point out is, if you guys have questions, cook along friends in the further webinar, please feel free to ask. You can use the chat or the Q&A, and we will try to answer them. So I am going to start off with our food prep. So as you can see in front of me, I don't have anything measured out. Sometimes I do, I have things chopped, but because we're all cooking together, we are going to be chopping together. So we have an advantage tonight because we're using essentially all vegetables tonight, that we don't have to kind of have that food safety rule, which is really important, where we're going to deal with the protein at the end. So our protein are the chickpeas tonight, and that's going to be a fabulous. We're also kind of double hit with the red pepper hummus as well. So we are going to just plug away and chop everything and get everything organized. And we're also going to get kind of our toppings chopped up as well, so that we can actually eat this right away. Everything will be ready. And that's really important when we're working in the kitchen, is to kind of have everything out, so that you have all the ingredients ready to go, but also so that once everything is cooked, you can just sit down and enjoy it. And then maybe someone will do the dishes for you. I know in my house, it's going to be me. So probably in your house, it'll be the same. So let us start off with our chickpeas, because that is our main ingredient that we're using tonight. And I'm using a 14-ounce can of chickpeas, which in the grocery store is easy to find. It's usually kind of either way up high on the shelf or way down low. Sometimes it'll be an organic product, or it'll be a no salt added product. But that doesn't mean that if you can't find this product that you're not able to make this recipe. You totally can. And a 19-ounce can is pretty common all around. But I'm going to tell you what you can do if you have a 19-ounce can. You might have all these ingredients at home already too. So I'm going to actually open this can first and foremost, and we're going to drain and rinse our chickpeas. So in a lot of recipes, you can actually use the packing liquid for so much more. For those of you that like making meringue, for example, if you save this packing liquid, you could beat it with a little bit of sugar and have beautiful meringue cookies. It's referred to as aquafaba in a lot of vegan and vegetarian cookbooks now. In a lot of other recipes, it's referred to as packing liquid. So we're going to drain and rinse it because it does have a little bit of flavor to it, and we want to keep these falafels nice and bright with all the flavors and spices that we're adding to it. So I'm going to go to the sink with my colander here and drain and rinse the chickpeas. So what you want to do is, as you're draining them with cool water, make sure that it's not foamy anymore. So once that foam subsides, you know that you're good. And they're well rinsed, okay? So everybody, all my cook along friends in Winnipeg, you guys can drain and rinse your chickpeas as well. And I want to talk about all the other options for chickpeas here, because there may be some people that love to buy dried chickpeas. This is also a great way to kind of save a few bucks, is to buy dried chickpeas and cook them so that you have your own chickpeas that are essentially, they're salt-free. They have no sodium in them. So if you are kind of looking to incorporate that, you totally can do that. And then for this recipe, you will have to measure out 1.5 cups of those cooked chickpeas. And we actually have some great options on Osteoporosis Canada on how to cook those chickpeas. So if there's Instant Pot lovers out there, there's a great way that you can cook them, or you can just use a pot. Okay, so I've drained and rinsed them, and I'm just going to keep a little bowl underneath here so that it will stay ready for me. Okay, so if you have a 19-ounce can, there's about 2 cups of chickpeas in there. So you're going to remove half a cup for this recipe. And then those chickpeas, I love eating chickpeas out of the can, so I eat them as a snack. Or you can actually put them in the falafel at the end. So we have lots of options for those chickpeas, okay? So our chickpeas are good to go. And at any point, if I'm moving too fast, let me know, guys, as we start chopping. Because even though we're using a food processor tonight, we still have to do some chopping. And I'm going to explain why with our next 2 ingredients. We are going to start off with our fresh herbs. Now, falafels are something that I have enjoyed for a while. I kind of experienced them when I was working in a test kitchen, and I thought, this is great. It has so much, it has a little bit of crunch, it has some smooth texture on the inside, but it was really about all the flavor that was inside. And the inside was filled with fresh herbs and spices. And that's what we're going to start off with. So in my bag here, I have 2 paper towel wrapped fresh herbs. And this is how I store my herbs. So for those of you that are buying herbs and thinking, you know, they're not lasting, what can I do? I'll tell you what I do with mine. So this is my bunch of parsley, and I rinse it, wash it, pat it dry, and then wrap it in some dry paper towel. Okay. And then I roll it up, put it back in the fridge. So that means now every time I need parsley, it's always ready to go. And as soon as this paper toweling is damp, take that and then put it in fresh, dry paper towel so that it's really the moisture that kind of is detrimental to these lovely fresh herbs. So the other one is fresh cilantro or coriander, okay, which is what we're using. And I treat it the same way. So just give it a good wash. Maybe if there's any blackened leaves, you can remove those, pat it dry, and then wrap it in the paper toweling as well. So we need 1/4 cup, which I have here, a dry measuring cup, okay? And it says chopped fresh parsley and cilantro. So what that means is we are going to be chopping them a little bit before we measure them. So I'm going to set these aside and get my other cutting board here. And if you're wondering, why can't we just take the leaves and shove them in here? Because that's actually a different amount, okay? So I want to make sure that I have more bang or more flavor per cup. So that's why I'm going to be chopping them. Now, you can, for the cilantro and the parsley, they tend to have these kind of finer stems at the bottom. You can chop those as well. They're going to add lots of great flavor to our falafel, okay? So I kind of just broke some sprigs in half there. And then I'm going to start chopping them. So keep them together in a little bit of a bundle, okay? And then just start at one end. Keep your fingers nice and tight. Hold your knife and rock up and down so that you're chopping kind of simultaneously into the same size pieces. Now, we don't have to go back and chop this really, really finely unless we weren't using a food processor, okay? So you can make this recipe without a food processor. You just need to chop the herbs a little bit more fine. So I'm going to do that chop and then put my cilantro in my dry measuring cup. Okay? Now, my rule of thumb is if you chop a little bit too much, which I did, maybe like a tablespoon more, I really like cilantro. So I'm going to add that in there as well. If you're not a cilantro fan, I can already hear kind of some grumblings, not from anyone that's cooking tonight, but at home, I know that there's always someone who's not a big cilantro fan. And I hate to say just don't add it because it really does add lots of flavor. However, if it is something that you really, really don't want to enjoy, double up on the parsley or add another fresh herb. Fresh basil, for example, would be delicious in here. Fresh mint. Any of those soft, delicate herbs are absolutely delicious. Okay, so I'm going to get my herbs. Wait, this is where sometimes we're going to put our chickpeas in our food processor. I'm trying to avoid having lots of dishes, guys. So let's put our chickpeas in our food processor and give those a rough chop. Okay, so if you were using, if you didn't have a food processor, you would use a potato masher or just chop up those chickpeas, okay, and then put them in a bowl. So let's give these a little bit of a pulse in here, just to break them up. Now, if you were using a different appliance, like a smaller food chopper or a blender, you might have to give them a little bit of help because they typically have a lot of liquid, and that's what makes them work better. So just kind of use a spatula and kind of move them around, and you can pulse them in a blender or a food chopper, very similar, okay? Now we can add our other ingredients, which will be a 1/4 cup of fresh cilantro. And I still have a little bit more in here, so I'm gonna add those guys in there. Okay. I love fresh herbs, so I think, you know, a little bit extra is always nice. And also, if it's an herb that you don't use very often, you wanna make sure that you use it. So if the recipe calls for it, you could also use some for garnish, or at the end, if you wanna sprinkle some on in your pita before you eat it, that'll give you a really nice fresh burst of flavor. All right, so we're gonna do the exact same thing with our fresh parsley, okay? And whether it's curly parsley or flat leaf parsley, I think it's a great staple to have in your refrigerator because it really does add lots of fresh flavor and lots of color. So I'm gonna do the same thing as with the cilantro, keep it in a little bit of a bunch and just give it a nice chop. So the closer that up and down movement is with your knife, the smaller the chop is, okay? And then we'll just measure that 1/4 cup as well. And it smells wonderful. This is kind of on a gray, dreary evening like it is here. This is gonna add lots of brightness into the kitchen. All right, so in goes my parsley. And you know what? I'm just gonna add the rest of that too. I don't normally do this, so Tracie might be shaking her head. She's like, what are you doing? You're not even following the recipe. But I kind of am.
That's how I cook, Emily. I take your inspiration and then I do all other kinds of stuff. I'm gonna do a quick check-in. How's everyone doing? Are we good? Thumbs up? We're good.
Thumbs up? Oh, good.
Everyone's just cooking away. Well, I think we've got some new people actually who joined.
Oh, so perfect.
Yes, no, that's great. We've got such a good group tonight. We've got lots of people online watching as well. And Emily, you actually already answered a couple of questions. Somebody did ask if they don't want to use the cilantro. So you answered that they can double the parsley. And I know you're going to talk about the other kinds of chickpeas. Did we do that yet?
We did a little bit, but if
the dried versus the canned.
Yeah, sometimes that information, because I say it so quickly, can get lost. So I did mention we do have that information on how to cook dried chickpeas on Osteoporosis Canada in the hummus recipe. So there's lots of great information on how to cook it, because there is a variety of ways. You can cook it in a pot, you can cook it in an Instant Pot, and the great part about making your own chickpeas is that then you can cook up a ton of them and measure them out as the recipe may require. So if you were to use a regular standard can of chickpeas in a chili, for example, 2 cups would cover that. In our recipe, because it's a 14-ounce can, it's slightly less, it's 1.5 cups. So you can say, you know, 1.5 cups chickpeas for falafels on the freezer bag or on the freezer container that you're using. And same with everything else, so that you know that when you grab something from the freezer, that it is going to be the replicating part of a can of chickpeas. So it's a great way to plan ahead. And, you know, if you have a Sunday morning free, in a couple of hours, you're going to have lots of chickpeas for lots of yummy recipes.
And which we do. We have lots of chickpea recipes on our website. So yeah, no, that's great. I think the other thing with the dried versus the canned, you know, they're pantry staples. So if you find like a great deal in the grocery store, doesn't matter which one they are, they're going to do just fine in your cupboard. But it's also, you may get more of the dried. It's not difficult, but obviously the canned is very convenient. So
it is very convenient.
I do find there's a little bit of a different taste, not bad, just different, like both really good. It's whatever you prefer.
It's even different within, let's say, the brands that you're looking at. So if you love a specific brand of chickpea, it's typically because of its texture. So some are a little bit firmer, some are a little bit softer, and they have their place in different recipes. So in our case, because we're breaking down, we want that creaminess. A creamier textured chickpea will work really well here. If it's a little bit firmer, it just means that you might have to work it a little bit more in the food processor. When you cook your own, you control that texture. So you can taste them, you know, do you want them a little bit softer? Do you want them a bit firmer? It's all a matter of how you're going to use them. So that's the added bonus, which is really nice.
We're all about versatility here. All right, Emily, keep going. I see everyone's kind of, they've done their thing and they're like waiting for you and they're like, all right, here we go.
Yes, Tracie and I can get off on tangents, FYI. Next up are the green onions, okay? So I'm gonna quarter cup, usually 2 green onions will cover us. Now, if you're thinking that green onion is kind of a strong flavor for you, raw, you could use chives here, which tend to be a little bit more delicate, but we're actually gonna use the whole green onion. There's a lot of recipes that I see often that, so we're gonna trim off the root ends here because we don't need those, okay? You can regrow them if you like. And then we're going to use the whole green onion. So oftentimes I see people cut off the whites and then use the greens. I'm all about less food waste here. So let's use it all because it all has wonderful flavor. Okay, so we need them sliced. And again, we need about 1/4 cup. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm holding them together. I have 2 here in my hand and I'm just rocking my knife, holding my fingers down and slicing them fairly thin so that I can kind of pack more into my measuring cup, okay? Now, if you have really large green onions, you could probably just get away with 1 for 1/4 cup. Mine weren't all that large. So now if you wanted to have a stronger onion flavor, you could use just some onion. A cooking onion would be great and then just chop it up. Shallots would be nice in here as well. Okay, so there's lots of options because what's great about recipes like this is that they really are pantry staple recipes. We want you to pull things out of your pantry and use them so that you can create these delicious meals. Okay, so there's my green onions. I'm going to get my 1/4 cup measure again and just measure it out. Okay, and this time, if you do have a little extra, like I do, I have probably just maybe a couple teaspoons here. This is going to be great just sprinkled over top so that it gets a really nice fresh hit of green onions. So I'm going to add my green onion to my food processor and then just set this aside so that I can save this for later. Okay. All right. Now, as I said, I always like having the recipe nearby because I need to make sure that I'm doing this right and also try to go into with the order of the ingredients. So the next ingredient is one of my favorites, and that's garlic. Okay, it says, I think it says 1 small clove. I leave this up to you. If you're a huge garlic lover, go full tilt, get a nice big large clove, add 2 cloves if you like. Just remember that these don't cook for very long, so you will get a very pronounced garlic flavor, okay? Now we do, so I have 2, they're fairly small cloves in my hands, and I'm gonna use, because we need 2 for this recipe, we need 1 for the tahini sauce and then 1 for our falafel. So I'm going to save the larger one, this slightly larger one for the tahini sauce. So we'll get that nice, bright, fresh flavor of garlic in there and use the smaller one. So all we need to do is just kind of use the side of our knife, give it a little tap to crack the skin. And then we're going to peel that and slice it to add into our food processor. Now, if you're wondering why I'm slicing it when the food processor is going to break it up, I'm doing it so that we don't have this whole clove getting bashed around and it takes longer to break up, which also creates a bit of heat coming from the garlic. So we want it to kind of break down evenly with everything else. That's why we're chopping everything, okay? So I'm just gonna take the little root end off there, okay? And then just a little slice, I'm holding it between my finger and my thumb, some even slices like that, and then I'm throwing them right into the food processor, okay? Easy peasy. Now, if you want it a little bit more delicate, you could use half a clove, okay, instead of the full small clove. So again, leave that up to you. What I love about these recipes that we are working together with is that they really are kind of a guideline. I want you to make them, taste them as they are, but then as you taste them, you might say, you know, I would like more garlic, or I would like more spice in it. And so that the next time you make it, take these notes so that you can create and develop those wonderful recipes and they become your own, right? So that's what's fun about it. All right, so we're gonna start adding our spices and some other ingredients that may seem odd to you why we're adding them. But before we do that, we're going to pulse. We're going to add a little bit of muscle with our food processor and get things mixed up a bit, okay? Now, if you don't want to pulse, you can also just turn it on for a little bit and mix it around. So what this is already starting to do is get all of our flavors. The chickpeas are getting coated with the herbs, and the green onions are getting broken down, as are the garlic. It's like, what did I put in there? I put garlic in. All right. So let's add some spices and other ingredients. So the first one is cornstarch. Why cornstarch? Well, the cornstarch is there just to kind of help bind everything. You could use flour, but then it wouldn't be gluten-free, which is, you know, another option of having these falafels. Now we're not using gluten-free pitas, but however, you could use a gluten-free pita and make it completely gluten-free. But what's great about this is that if you're just serving them as appetizers with a little bit of hummus, it's a great gluten-free option. So, but we are using it as a binder to help keep everything together. So I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now, could you use another starch? You totally could. So if you had some potato starch, for example, that would work. You could also use a little bit of rice flour. And that would also keep it nice and light. All these types of starches, they work really, really nice. Okay, so there's my 2 tablespoons of starch. I'm also just taking a peek at everybody's kitchen just to see how things are going. And then I'm going to start adding our seasoning. So I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And if you are not a heavy salt user, or you're trying to reduce sodium, by all means, you can reduce the sodium here as well. This really helps bring out the flavor of everything that we're using. But you could use a 1/4 teaspoon, or if you just want to add a pinch of salt, that's okay too, because we are going to get a little bit of sodium from our chickpeas as well. Okay, so my salt, and one of our big flavors is cumin. So I'm going to measure out half a teaspoon of ground cumin as well. Okay. Now here's one that, again, you might be thinking, why on earth is baking powder in my falafel? This actually helps lighten them on the inside so that you get that crispness on the outside, but it stays nice and light textured on the inside. We don't need much, just a half a teaspoon is going to go in there. Okay. That goes in there as well. Chemical leaveners, they are your friends. And then we're going to add just a smidge, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now, for those of you that are cooking with me, if you already know that 1/4 teaspoon is not going to be spicy enough for you, you can double up. But I always like to wait. It's easier to add later than to try to take it away. So I'm going to add my 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne in here. I know that that's kind of a good level for me, because later you could always add hot sauce, right? You can just add a little bit of heat that way. All right, lid goes on, and we're going to just pulse this back up again. I'm also going to get a rubber spatula, because you want to make sure that you scrape the sides so that you get all those little bits of chickpeas that may be kind of flying up like that. Okay, oops. Okay, and here's where we get to test to see if all this hard work that we did is going to work. So I'm going to take my food processor out here and show you what it looks like from overhead. And it should have a beautiful kind of green color to it. And that's just picking up the color from the herbs that we use and the green onions. I want you to take a little bit in your hand, okay, and just give it a squeeze. And if it stays like this, nice and squishy, okay, it basically takes the shape of your fingers when you squish it. You have a delicious, perfect falafel mix, okay? So that's where I want everybody to be at. So all of our Winnipeg cook-along friends, if you are at that stage and it's in your food processor, first and foremost, take out your blade, because we don't need any injuries tonight. make sure you take your blade out. Okay.
Safety first, everyone. That's what we're aiming for. Safety first. Let's just check. I'm looking. Thank you, Deborah Ryan. She was so good. Deborah R. We have two Deborahs tonight. She showed me that she took out her blade. That's awesome. I'm looking for everybody else. So everyone's scooping and everything else. And I just wanted to say, Emily, good use of the word squishy. So that's the first time we've used the word squishy on a cooking webinar. So that's
I am all about technical terms when it comes to anything to help anybody out. So what we're going to do before we do any more chopping is we're actually going to shape our falafels. Okay. I actually like to do this so that they sit for a little bit and kind of, feel good with their shape before we pan fry them. It just kind of gets everything to settle a little bit. And then we're going to get all of our toppings chopped up. Okay. So I love this recipe because I've made recipes for falafels that make like 50 falafels. And then, in my family, there's 2 out of the 5 of us that will eat them. So what am I going to do? So this is actually a nice small batch. It makes 12 falafels. So a nice kind of size that you could have for dinner, or you could share them, with some friends for an appetizer. So I'm bringing over a plate here to use, and you can eyeball this. You can use a scoop if you want. I think I have a little ice cream scoop handy here to show you. So about like 2 tablespoons worth, this just little ice cream scoop here. So if you want, you can use something like this and scoop it out to estimate your 12 balls, or you can just divide it up and eyeball it into 12 portions. Now, if you wanted to have larger falafel patties, you totally could do that. And then just make a falafel burger, because that would be absolutely delicious too. Especially if you wanted to change it and have it in a bun, for example. Or if you just wanted to have it on some greens. Again, the options are endless with these types of recipes. So I'm gonna see if I get 12 here. If not, then I will divvy up the mixture a little bit better. Okay. So divide up your mixture into 12 or thereabouts. If you want to make them into bigger burgers, you totally can. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oh, I might have enough for 12 this way. So this is about kind of 2 tablespoons per falafel. And then I just have a little bit left here that I can divide amongst. I hope it smells great in your kitchen, guys, because like the herbs are phenomenal. They just add such a nice freshness to it. And this really, to me, it kind of reminds me of summer. It's not necessarily a summer dish, but just as soon as you incorporate fresh herbs like that, it just really brightens the flavor in the day in the kitchen. All right, so I've divided mine up into 12. And then what I want you to do is, one at a time, take one, okay, give it a good squeeze so that it forms a ball. Now, if we were deep frying these, so using a lot of oil, I would actually just leave them in a ball like this and fry them, deep fry them, and then they'd get a crisp coating, and then inside they'd be really, really tender. But because we're pan frying them in a little bit of oil, we're gonna make them into little circles, okay? So basically little falafel sliders, really, like that, okay? So they're about maybe ½ an inch thick. If you want them a bit thinner, you can have them a bit thinner, okay? But the reason why I want you to compact them into a little ball first is to make sure that the mixture stays together, okay? That's really all you're doing, so that your mixture stays nice and firm. But we're not kneading it, we're not working it like a dough or anything, because that would actually make it a little bit tough, and we don't want that. We want this to be nice, light, and flavorful. Tracie, are there any questions coming from anybody?
We do. We have a couple, and actually a few people are asking. We love freezing everything. So can we freeze this chickpea mixture either before we've cooked it or after, or at all? What can we do with that?
That's a great question, and I do have an answer, and I think it's an answer everyone will love. You can freeze them, but freeze them after you've pan fried them, okay? just because the texture will be better. And then this way you just take them out of the freezer and let them thaw, and you can actually just eat them right away, which is great because you could throw them in a lunch, even partially thawed, and then by the time you eat them at lunch, they'll be delicious and perfect and ready to go. So think of these as an addition to one of my favorite salads. Is, you kind of saw it everywhere a few years back, was that kale with like roasted squash and then falafels on top with a nice tahini salad dressing. These would be perfect for that, and you get that really nice fresh flavor. So pan fry them, let them cool, pop them in the freezer, and then just take them out when you want to enjoy them. So that helps, hopefully, some people out who want to freeze it. Okay. Any other questions, Tracie?
Yes, I'm actually just going to do a quick check though on our friends that are cooking and just check in. How's everyone doing? Are we all good? I'm looking for the thumbs up. Yep, everyone's doing what you're doing. So that's
perfect.
Great. All right, we checked in with them. So yes, so actually we have a lot of questions. I was going to wait until you started, but frying, but we're just going to ask now. Everybody's asking, do you have to pan fry? Can you air fry? Can you put them on parchment and put them in the oven? How many different ways can you prepare these? I know,
any
right?
way you want. Is that the answer that we want?
Exactly. It's all about taste and texture. It's what
totally
what you want. I do like a bit of crispy outer.
Me too. So that's kind of where we're heading with this, is that that pan frying. So deep frying is one thing, using a little bit more oil, deep frying it very quickly. It takes about a minute to get that golden brown. You take them out, crispy on the outside, you open them, and it's really nice and tender. So we're replicating that by basically pan frying them in a little bit of oil. And that gives us the crispness as well as the tenderness on the inside. You can replicate that in an air fryer. It tends to be a little bit drier just because it's in the air fryer, so it has that drier air. So think of your oven, right? If you were to put it in your oven, the same thing. There's no moisture happening there. The oil actually gives it a little bit of moisture as well. I am going to wash my hands quickly, but these are my 12 little falafels that I'm going to set aside, and then I'll be back and I'm going to keep telling you about the ways to cook them. So for the oven, yes, you can put them on parchment paper and spray them with a little cooking spray if you want. You will not get that same deep, dark, golden brown color that you will get from frying them in the oil. And that's okay. They will dry out a little bit as well, because they are getting that dry heat from the oven. But they will still be delicious. You'll still get all that fresh flavor. So there are lots of options on how to cook these falafels. And it's really just a texture thing, in all honesty, as Tracie mentioned. It's really just about how crispy do you want them and how tender do you want them inside. So some people will want to add an egg or some other liquid to it, but you really don't need to by pan frying them, or even in the air fryer for a short amount of time, again, with a little bit of cooking spray, because it does really help create that crisper texture on the outside, that it will work. So hopefully that made sense and covered all the different methods on how to cook them. And by the way, I'm saying that this is a small batch because it makes 12. You could double up on this and freeze some, right? So, you think of it that way. Just remember, when you're doubling something that has something like cayenne pepper that has a kick to it, you don't always want to double up on that spice because it can be amplified. So, again, just think about maybe serving it with a little bit of hot sauce after the fact, instead of doubling up on that hot spice. Okay. How's everybody doing shaping their falafels? I think it looks like people are still doing a little bit of shaping. If you're done shaping your falafels, we can actually start chopping up some of our other ingredients for the toppings. So what I usually do is do this because I like people to make their own for dinner. Think of it as taco night, right? And now it's falafel night. So you can put whatever toppings you want on it. So we have suggested a few things. We can use the rest of those green onions if you still have some, right? So I'm going to put that on my plate because that's going to be an option for a topping, a little bit of green onion. But I also have tomatoes, cucumbers, and red onion. Okay, so I'm going to grab one of my tomatoes here. And if you aren't using whole tomatoes, you could use grape tomatoes and quarter them, whatever you happen to have on hand. In my family, red onions are not a big hit around here, but they are great for color. And they have just a wonderful flavor. If you're not a fan of raw onions, you could also do a quick pickled red onion, okay? A little bit of vinegar and sugar, and just bring it to the boil, throw those onions in, let them cool to room temperature, and you have a great little pickled onion, okay? So sometimes that's what people prefer because they want that little bit of acidity as a topping. But we're going for tried and true, fresh and flavorful with lots of color. I'm just looking for my knife. There it is. And I'm going to start off with the cucumber. So I have a little bit of cucumber here that I'm going to chop up. Okay. Now, I like using English cucumbers because they don't have very many seeds in them. But if you have a field cucumber, just check the seed situation. If there's a lot of seeds in there, you can remove some of them, but they'll work just as well. Okay. So I have, this is about a quarter or a third of an English cucumber. We go through cucumbers a lot in my house. My dogs, that's their snack. They love cucumbers. So if they come running, not that you're going to see them, they're Yorkies. They're like way down here. They know what chopped cucumber sounds like. All right, so we're going to dice our cucumbers. If you want them sliced, totally up to you guys, how comfortable you feel slicing and dicing. I'm going to dice these and show you how to do that. So I'm going to make long, thin cuts in my cucumber. Again, just holding it nice and tight and having them nice and similar size. And then I'm going to stack them and make little strips, right, like this. And then little squares for my dice so that everything is the same size. And then I'll just add it to my toppings plate here. Okay. And the great part about this is that even if you didn't want to have this in a pita, this would be just a great salad. Tomatoes, cucumber with the falafel and the tahini sauce on top. It's a great salad. So I'm going to do the same thing with the remaining pieces of cucumber that I have here. And then do those little dices up and down as well. Okay. So there's our cucumber. That ready. And then I'm going to do our tomato. So same thing with my tomato. I'm going to do slices. Now this is where you're going to find out if your knife is sharp or not. If you know already that your knife isn't sharp, I highly recommend you use a serrated knife, okay, so that you're not kind of squishing your tomatoes. So I'm making long slices again, and I'm going to stack my tomato because you always want to be cutting with the flat side down so nothing's rolling around on you. And then I'm going to make some lengthwise cuts again, like that. And then dicing these up into similar size pieces and little squares. Okay. Now, if you want kind of a meatier tomato, aroma tomato would be really nice, or plum tomato. Okay. This is just a vine ripened tomato, so it has a little bit of juiciness to it, which is not a bad thing. All right. Looks like everybody's working well in their kitchen. That's perfect. And then I'm going to do my other half here. Tracie, are we okay for questions from anybody else?
We do have other questions.
Okay.
So let me just see here. So this is a great one. I do this. I freeze parsley and cilantro, and Marilyn has said, can I use my frozen chopped herbs from her garden, and will they be okay in this recipe?
Yes, I would totally do that. And they're already chopped. If you have them chopped already, that's great. Measure them out, get them in there, and I would add them frozen. Like, don't let them thaw, just add them frozen. I actually freeze my parsley whole so that all I do is take it out of the bag, because I do mine in bags, and then I just crush it in my hands. So I don't even have to chop it. That's how lazy I am. There, I admitted it. You just grab it and crush it, and it's chopped, right? And just use it. Super, super simple, just like that. So yes, definitely, Marilyn, please do. use up because you know what, those fresh garden herbs are going to have so much wonderful flavor that there's no reason why not to use them, right?
Right. And you're going to chop an onion now, right?
I am going to chop an onion.
Okay, so while you chop that, I'm just going to quickly say, not all herbs freeze well. Is that fair, Emily? So
that is very fair.
Figure out which ones work well and what you want to add in this, I guess. Trial and error. Those two do freeze well. But while you're chopping the onion, if you wanted if somebody asked, could they use fava beans? So before you answer about the actual bean, I will just say that not all beans have the same amount of calcium and protein. Some have more, some have less, some have other nutrients that you may want to get. So if you're going to replace an ingredient, just want to read the product label to make sure that you're going to get the same amount of calcium and protein, because these are bone building recipes. But from a culinary standpoint, can you use any kind of bean? Would it work?
You can. So think fava beans in particular, they have a thicker skin. So they don't break down quite as easily as chickpeas. So check the skin first. Canned fava beans aren't always easy to find. They do have a softer skin just because of the processing. Frozen fava beans are readily available, and their skin is a little bit thicker. So if you want to use those thicker skin beans, you almost want to pop them out of the skins, which can be a bit of a hassle, right? Because you saw this kind of comes together fairly quickly. But white beans would be great, kidney beans, navy beans, any of those kind of canned beans. Lentils would be a little on the soft side, but they would still work. A mixed bean, change it up and you have all the beans in there. Black-eyed peas, for example, or pinto beans, romano beans. They all have that nice soft texture, which for the falafel is kind of what we're looking for, which would be fabulous. So yeah, pretty much, again, experiment and try some different things, because you will create a different flavor each time you use a different bean, right? So that's the wonderful part. And get creative. So I'm going to chop this onion. I'm going to use probably about a half of it. But when you chop, and this is like general rule for all onions, they're round, so they roll around. So the first thing we want to do is, I'm just trimming off the stem end here, okay? And putting it on the flat side, so when I go to cut it in half, it's not rolling around on me. So I'm just going to take my knife, cut it halfway, okay? I'm going to save this half for something else and just cut this half. And again, I want nice small little pieces. This also exposes that papery skin on the outside for me to peel easily, okay? So just peel that off, just like that, and set that aside. And if you know already that you're not an onion fan, you don't have to chop it, okay? If you want a little bit of onion, just chop up some more green onions, because that, as I said, will be a delicious addition. Okay, so there goes my papery skin. I still have this root end on, okay? So this part of the onion is still on intact, because that's kind of the part that everyone wants to cut off right away. But this is actually what's holding the onion together. So let's keep that intact, okay? So what I'm gonna do, those lengthwise cuts, that's what we're gonna do. But I'm not cutting all the way down. I'm not cutting all the way across. I'm just cutting because I want that root end to stay intact. So the smaller these cuts are, the smaller your pieces of onions will be. And then I want a smaller dice. So I'm actually going to hold my hand flat and then move my knife across the center of the onion, okay? So I have essentially 2 layers now in my onion here, which is perfect because it'll give me smaller pieces. And then that same chopping motion that I've been using up and down, and if you stay small, you'll get nice small pieces of onion, okay? Just keep moving your fingers back. I'm not moving the onion, my knife is moving, okay? And then you'll get this nice, lovely little dice of onion. And that piece that I'm holding on to is that piece that you wanted to cut off in the beginning. So that's your handle for the onion, okay? And then you have a nice little dice of onion for your falafel pita. There. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting really hungry with all these smells, especially the fresh. As soon as you start chopping into like all these veggies and have all the freshness of them, It's absolutely wonderful. So there's one more thing I want you to mince up before we get rid of our cutting board, and that's our garlic for our tahini sauce. Okay, so that same process that we did to remove the skin for our falafel, we're going to do that same thing now with the second clove of garlic. So blade on the side, give it a little tap to crack that papery skin. Okay, peel off that skin. Now, last time I told you to remove that root end. I want you to keep that intact again, because just like what we did with the onion, we're going to do it here with our garlic clove. So my thumb and finger are holding the clove tight, and I'm going to go through with my knife. Again, not all the way through, because I want that root end to hold it all in place. So I'm doing some lengthwise cuts again, and I'm flipping it over, hold it nice and tight, and do some cuts lengthwise again. So what I'm doing is creating little squares inside that garlic, okay? Then hold on to it tight, and then up and down with my knife. Try to stay nice and tight, and you'll get a nice little mince of garlic, okay? As close as you can get to that root end, and you have these nice little fine pieces of garlic, okay? Now, if you know that this is already going to be too big for you, just put that pile together and run your knife up and down like that to get a finer mince, okay? So the reason why I'm not smashing it into my board and start chopping it is because I want all the flavor in the garlic to stay there. I don't want all that juice coming out of the garlic and getting on my cutting board. I want that flavor in the tahini sauce, okay? There. So there's our minced garlic for our tahini sauce. And what we'll do is we'll start making that tahini sauce while we fry our falafels. Especially for those of you that have a partner in the kitchen tonight, you got to get them to do something, right? So one of you can be frying and one of you can be making the tahini sauce. Keep them out of your hair so you can focus on something else. All right, that's why I love cooking with people. If you guys were all here, I'd have a job for you. This would have got done, you know, about 40 minutes ago. We would have all had lots of jobs on hand. All right, so we are going to do some pan frying, and I'm going to use a little bit of canola oil. So use a neutral oil here, because remember, we packed all the flavor into these falafels. That's what we want to shine. So if you used a stronger oil that had a big flavor to it, it would kind of take over. So we definitely don't want to do that. So I'm going to move my burner over so you can see what I'm doing in my skillet. So I'm going to do this. That. So you should be able to see it there. Okay, and I'm going to turn this on and add a little bit of our oil. Okay, now you don't need a big skillet for this. This is actually, I think it's an 8-inch skillet. I am using a nonstick skillet. Another reason why, because then I don't need to use as much oil in here, which is fabulous. So in the recipe, I think it calls for about 1/4 cup. If you want to start out with a little bit less, you totally can. But it really, if you can coat lightly that bottom part of your skillet, that's really all you need in there, okay? And you want to cook this over kind of medium-high heat so that we get that nice golden brown color. If your stove runs a little bit hot, especially if you have an electric stove, you might want to go on to medium, because that heat, you just want it to stay steady throughout as we're cooking, okay? So I'm going to heat up that oil a little bit. And if you have someone in the kitchen with you, get them to kind of be attentive for that part. And I'm going to just move this over a smidge so that then I have space so I can show you the other stuff that we have to make, which is the tahini sauce. All right, so I'm kind of holding my hand up here just to check the temperature of the oil. So I'm feeling like it's pretty warm. And then you can start putting in your falafels. Okay. So again, this helps the fact that we made them this shape. We're going to get a lot of crisp texture on those flat sides. which is exactly what I love about these falafels. Now, if this pan was any smaller, I wouldn't be able to have enough space around these falafels to cook them. So if you have a larger frying pan, you'll just have a bit more space to turn them around, which is totally okay. Okay. There. So I'm just keeping those, and then I'm gonna have a plate with some paper towel, because that's gonna absorb any excess oil that might be on the outside, so we still get a nice bit of crispness there. Okay. And you will need something to turn them over. So whether it's 2 forks or a little spatula, I'm using a little fork and a spatula to flip them over, totally up to you. Okay. This is the part I love, that wonderful smell that's happening. Now, if you feel comfortable while this is happening, especially for those of you that are working with someone, we can make the tahini sauce, okay? Which is fairly easy. Tahini sauce is, tahini itself is a sesame seed paste. So think of natural peanut butter. When they grind it up, it has that beautiful kind of meatiness of the peanut butter, and then it separates some of the natural oil out. So the tahini sauce sometimes will do that as well, because it's the same thing using sesame seeds, okay? That same process. So when you open up your tahini's jar, which that's what I have here, you might have to get in there with a knife. I typically find a knife works better, just a butter knife, and give it a good stir, so that much like any natural nut or seed butter, it needs a little bit of stirring to keep everything together. Okay, I'm going to check my falafels here too. So you're looking for a nice kind of light golden brown color. And remember, that's really all the reason why you can eat these if you wanted to, by the way. You don't have to even pan fry them. It's really just to get that nice texture, that crispness in there, okay? And a little bit of color, which is nice. There. Okay, so it really kind of happens fairly quickly, like in a couple minutes. And then you're just going to let them cook for another minute or two on the other side. Now, if you wanted to just pan fry them on one side and then tuck them in the oven, you could do that as well. But you need a hot oven, so 425 or 450. And if you were using a skillet that is oven proof, so essentially not a plastic handle, you could tuck them into a nice hot oven for about 5 more minutes to finish them on the other side. And that residual heat from the skillet will crisp it, and you won't have to add any more oil or anything like that. So there's another way that you can cook these falafels. Okay. I'm gonna actually, well, I should probably cook them before I turn them off. Any other questions, Tracie?
Yes, we do. I'm actually just checking everybody out here. Everyone is working away. We've got, oh, Giselle got some help. So hi, Giselle, doing great. And I see that Nat and Zach, I think Zach is doing the frying and Nat is stirring the tahini, and we've got Carolyn working away, and Sandy and Alan. There's Alan. Hey, Alan. So everybody's doing stuff. Lorna and Maureen and Karina. I feel like
Awesome.
I'm like the kids program where I talk to everybody. Deborah and Tressa, there we go, and Amanda and Matt. So everyone's cooking away, so that all looks good. The other, you know what? I think there's a question. Will some of them, what if they're falling apart? Maureen just asked, hers are kind of falling apart a little bit as she's frying them.
Okay, so sometimes what will happen is a little bit will kind of flake off the edges. And that's usually just because they weren't kind of squeezed together enough, and that's okay, because what ends up happening is any part that falls off, any little crumb, you can still just drain it out of the oil and add that to your sandwich in the end, which is yummy. So if you've put them all in and they're doing that all at once, then just kind of keep going on with that. The other thing you could do is test one and see the consistency of it, and then fry the rest. So yeah. I apologize that I didn't say that initially, but you could do it that way as well, so that if one of them, your first one, let's say, is falling apart, you might just need to either get a potato masher in there and mash it up a little bit more, or use your hands to physically push it together a little bit more.
Perfect. And I've just got a couple more because I'm just conscious of time too. We've had so much fun so far, and I know we're doing stuff. So in the recipe, it does call for when Emily assembles these and everyone else assembles these, hummus, and we chose a roasted red pepper hummus. We have a recipe on the website. I put that in the chat if you feel like you'd like to make your own. And somebody else asked, where you can purchase tahini. So it's not, sometimes not all grocery stores carry all products, but what section, I think it's in the near the vegetables. Is that the right, or it could change, right, Emily? You should just ask your grocer.
Yeah,
when you
ask your
walk in,
grocer. Most international aisles now, like even your basic grocery stores have international aisles that are quite generous with the products that they bring in. So you'll find tahini there. Sometimes you will actually find it in with the nut butters and the seed butters. So, be sure to look there as well. You can also, if you are not finding it in your grocery store, and, always talk to the grocery manager, because they want to know what people want in their stores. So if that's what you're looking for, they will bring it in. The other thing you can do is go to bulk stores or health food stores, and they typically have them there as well. So you can buy a little bit, especially if you are not necessarily, if this is something you don't know how else to use it. You can make salad dressings with tahini. A lot of people they use it like peanut butter because they really like that flavor. You can make cookies with it. So, it really does have a lot of purpose in the kitchen.
Absolutely. And somebody asked, what if I don't want to use tahini? This is all about what you want to put on. So if you've got, it's good with a little bit of something like a hummus. We're using both, but you could just use the hummus. You could use
totally.
You could use hot sauce. You can use what I've had people that love tzatziki that they eat it with their falafel. It's all personal choice. This is what we're making it.
And if you love peanut butter or pumpkin seed butter, you could use that in place of the tahini as well. So it really is, it has a different flavor, but it still kind of does the same thing. It has that nice creaminess. And yes, we're using both, but you totally don't have to. You can use one or the other easily, for sure.
Exactly. All right, let's put it all together. Excited.
Okay. So I'm going to measure out my ingredients for this sauce here, because I was chatting away. So I stirred my tahini and I'm pouring it to measure it. And if you think, why am I not using a liquid measure? It's because I can actually level it off in my dry measuring cup, okay, to make it a little bit easier for me. And then I'm going to just get it out of my measuring cup. We're going to add some warm water to this. Warm because it won't shock the tahini. So sometimes if you use cold water, it'll actually thicken it a little too quickly. So we don't want to do that. We just want to have a nice kind of creamy sauce. So a little bit of warm water going in, and that lovely minced garlic that you did, that's going to go in too. So I'm going to scrape that in. And then we're going to add a zip of fresh lemon juice in there too. And this is actually where you can add as much as you like. If you really love the freshness of lemon, you can add a couple tablespoons, not just one. I'm just going to give this a little roll here before I cut it and squeeze it. So I'm going to add my warm water in here, and I'm going to add my lemon juice, which this is a very dry lemon. So I might actually need to add both halves, but typically I find that you can easily get a tablespoon from at least one half of a lemon, unless it's a little on the dry side like this one. There. And then we are going to season this with salt. You could also add a little bit of pepper to this too, or that hot sauce that we've been talking about. Here's your opportunity. You can jazz up this tahini and add a nice big splash of hot sauce to it as well. Okay. There. That's my lemon juice. And then I'm just going to add, I can't remember how much salt, just a quarter teaspoon of salt in here. And then we have all our components. I went to the fridge and took out my red pepper hummus to add as well. Okay. So there's our tahini sauce. And it smells wonderful. The other thing you could add, by the way, is some lettuce. Right? If you guys want some lettuce in this pita, you can totally add lettuce. Or as I said, you could have it as a salad on a bed of lettuce. So here's our components. There's our falafel. There's all our toppings. There is our tahini sauce. Here are my pita. I'm going to grab one of these. That. Take some of my hummus. I'm going to build one of these. Are you guys ready to eat? I know we're jumping around here. I'm sure some of you got to be hungry, unless you've been snacking. I see some of you holding some ingredients up, so perhaps you were snacking on those chickpeas maybe. So I'm going to spoon a little bit of this red pepper hummus. Now you can open up the pita, but I like to just kind of do it this way. It's a little bit more casual. And then spread my hummus here over top. And I'm going to put, I think I can handle 3. If you want to go for 4, you can, but I think 3 is good for me. And then I'm going to put some tomatoes on top and some cucumber. And I like to finish it with some of that tahini sauce right on top. Okay. So this is, again, it's falafel night. It's not taco night tonight, it's falafel night. So you can actually put these ingredients out and let everybody create their own so that they have this beautiful casual dinner. If I was serving these as an appetizer, because these are a great little size, you can just kind of stack them up like this. And you can serve them with the tahini and as a little dip, or even the hummus you could have alongside and serve that as a little dip. Okay, so a great option for 2 different things. You could have it as an appetizer, or you can have it as a meal. Okay, and then let's worry about the dish later, guys, because you know.
I agree. I'm taking a quick look at everyone because I think we've got everyone's. Oh, Sandy, she was tasting it. How is it, Sandy? Is it all good? She goes, shh, don't tell anyone. No, you're allowed. You're allowed to eat. Oh,
you're allowed to eat your own food.
Alan, that looks great. And we've got Maureen, everyone's tasting it and stuff. So you guys all have your dinner now. The rest of us are going to have to fend for ourselves.
That's right.
That's too bad. Awesome. That's so great. So I know we've gone a little over time, but I think it's so many great questions.
Yes.
Everyone, I want to thank all of our cook along folks that are cooking with us in Winnipeg. You guys did a great job. Yay to everyone. You did a great job. I hope you all enjoy making this recipe and that you enjoy your dinner now. Emily, thank you. I'm going to share some info. So if you live in Winnipeg and you weren't able to get on to tonight's cook along, or if you are and you want to do it again, we're doing another one in January, and more information is going to be coming out on that as soon as I get it on the website. So really, everyone's waiting for me to get it on. But if you like this recipe, so I did say I posted the red pepper hummus in the chat. We also have a delicious roasted chickpea recipe, which are great just to snack on, to put in falafels or to put in salads, etc. There's so many different recipes. So check it out at osteoporosis.ca/recipes. We have so much happening, as you definitely want to get online. We've got the calcium calculator to check out, your foods to see how much calcium per serving. We have our podcasts, all free. We've got our blog, and this webinar is recorded just like our other ones. So if you've registered, which you all have, you will be receiving an email this week with the link so you can watch it again. If you want to kind of check out the parts, maybe you need to watch one more time, or if you got on late. And then also previous recordings of all our other webinars are on the OC replay page. We have 5 new webinars coming up in the next 3 weeks. So if you want to learn about the connection between lupus and bone health, get on the website. It's Tuesday, November 28th. We have origins of musculoskeletal pain on Thursday, November 30th. we have another cooking demo, not a cook along, just a cooking demo, a Tex-Mex cornbread topped beef pie. That's Wednesday, December 6th. We have a webinar, The Importance of Protein. It's an educational webinar, Thursday, December 7th. And because we've released the new clinical practice guideline on osteoporosis, we've got Dr. Rowena Rideout, who will be presenting what you need to know about the guideline on Friday, December 8th. And those will be the last webinars of 2023. I know we're heading towards the holidays. So if you get on the website, all of these are live right now. You can register. And also, I just wanted to put it out there. Giving Tuesday is next Tuesday. We greatly are thankful for all of our supporters and our donors and our partners, because without you, we could not do the work that we're doing. We have a match gift from the Colin Stevens Family Foundation up to $10,000. So if you feel that you would like to help support more work so we can do more to help more Canadians across the country, you can get that QR code. You can visit osteoporosis.ca/Giving Tuesday and make a donation and have it matched up until next Tuesday. And we're very grateful and thankful for all of you who do support us. And finally, thank you to our partners. Thank you to the Winnipeg Foundation. They're the reason we're able to do this webinar this evening, and fabulous grocery delivery in Winnipeg by Food Fair. Very happy for them. And we're always happy for Emily. Emily, fabulous job as always. Delicious.
Thanks, everybody.
It was a fun night. So big applause to everyone who cooked. And
I hope you guys have a great meal.
Oh my gosh, wait, who won?
Oh wait, you have to give away the...
Yes, wait, I'm gonna have to stop sharing because I can't find the name of the person who won. Oh my gosh, who's winning? Jack Nazaroff from Langley Township in BC. You won the apron, so congratulations. Sorry about that. See, look at that. Got lots happening. Okay, everyone.
Oh, and one more thing.
Oh yes,
Tracie.
Emily. Yes.
Before you guys eat, or maybe while you're eating, take a photo and post it. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, post it. Let us know how your meal was.
We want to see all of it online. And if you are at home and you're just watching and you want to make this, we always want to hear how you like our recipes. So tag us on those social sites, take the photos, and let us know how they are, and let us know about the recipes you want to see, because the last cooking demo, because of what somebody asked, guess what, we're doing it in the new year. So lots to come. Have a great one, everyone. Happy end of November almost. Take care, everybody. Happy cooking. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a great night.
Bye.